The ship landed on Ashara Prime, just as the twin suns began to set. Kong Tai-ho stood near the window and watched the golden light spread across the alien city below. Towers of black crystal rose into the purple sky. Flying vehicles moved between them like silver fish in a dark ocean. It was beautiful. It was terrifying. It was real. Humanity had only discovered faster-than-light travel 5 years ago. In that short time, they learned they were not alone. The galaxy was full of life, full of empires, full of species who had watched the stars for millions of years. And among all these empires, the Kelvani Dominion was the oldest and most powerful. Today, humans would meet them for the first time. Tai-ho turned away from the window. He was 29 years old, tall for a Korean man, with kind eyes and a calm face. He had served in the military before becoming a diplomat. He had seen war. He had seen peace. He had learned that the most dangerous weapon was not a gun, but a word spoken at the wrong time. Or perhaps the right time. Ambassador Yoon Mingi walked toward him. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and an even sharper tongue. She had spent her whole life studying alien languages, and now she would finally use that knowledge. "Are you ready?" she asked. Tai-ho smiled. "Does it matter?" "We're here now." Minji did not smile back. "The Kelvani are not like other species we've met. They ruled this part of the galaxy before humans learned to make fire. They see us as children. Worse than children. Insects. And we'll have to change their minds." "Just don't do anything stupid," Mingi said. "Follow my lead. Keep your head down. And whatever you do, do not look at the royal family directly. For the Kelvani, eye contact with royalty is a challenge. They will kill you for it." Tai-ho nodded, but something in his chest tightened. He had never been good at looking down. The Imperial Palace was larger than any building Tai-ho had ever seen. Its walls were made of stone so dark it seemed to drink the light. Guards stood at every door, tall creatures with silver skin and 4 arms. Their eyes glowed faintly in the shadows. The human delegation walked through endless hallways. Other alien species passed them, and Tai-ho noticed something strange. Every single one of them kept their eyes on the floor. Ambassadors from powerful worlds, warriors from proud species, all of them looked down like frightened children. The great hall opened before them. It was vast enough to hold 1,000 people, and it did. Aliens of every shape and color filled the room, standing in perfect rows. At the far end, a throne of black crystal sat upon a high platform. The emperor was there, ancient and terrible, his face hidden behind a mask of gold, but it was not the emperor who drew Tai-ho's attention. It was her. She entered through a side door, and the entire hall fell silent. Even the air seemed to stop moving. She was tall and slender, with skin like pale moonlight and hair that flowed like liquid silver. Her eyes were the color of winter storms, cold and beautiful and dangerous. She wore armor of white metal that caught the light like frozen fire. Princess Velith, the third daughter of the emperor, commander of fleets, destroyer of worlds. Tai-ho had read about her in the briefing files. She was over 300 years old but looked no older than 25. She had never lost a battle. She had never shown mercy, and no living being had ever held her gaze. The princess walked through the hall, and every creature bowed. Heads went down, eyes closed. Even Minji lowered her face, grabbing Tai-ho's arm in warning. But Tai-ho did not look away. He watched her move with the grace of a predator. He watched the way light played across her silver hair. He watched her eyes, those cold and ancient eyes, and he found himself unable to turn away. She was beautiful. Not in the soft way of earth women, but in the way of storms and starlight. Beautiful and deadly, like a blade made of ice. Princess Velith stopped walking. The silence in the hall became absolute. Tai-ho could hear his own heartbeat. He could feel the eyes of 1,000 aliens turning toward him. He could feel Minji's fingers digging into his arm hard enough to bruise. The princess turned her head slowly. Her winter storm eyes found his, and for a moment, the universe held its breath. She walked toward him. Each step rang against the stone floor like a death bell. The guards reached for their weapons. The other aliens stepped back in fear. Mingi tried to pull Taiho down, but he stood firm. Velith stopped in front of him. She was taller than him by a hand's width, and she looked down at him with an expression that could freeze stars. "You dare gaze at me?" she said. Her voice was cold and sharp like breaking ice. It echoed through the silent hall. Everyone waited for what would come next. Everyone expected blood. Taiho knew he should apologize. He knew he should bow. He knew that one wrong word would mean his death and possibly war for all of humanity. But when he looked into her eyes, he did not see a goddess to be feared. He saw loneliness. He saw centuries of isolation hidden behind walls of ice. He saw someone who had never been looked at as anything but a monster. So, Kong Taiho did the most human thing possible. He smiled. It was not a nervous smile or a political smile. It was warm and genuine and reached all the way to his eyes. "Only because you're beautiful," he said. The words hung in the air like stars being born. Princess Velith's expression froze. Her cold eyes widened just a fraction. In 300 years, she had been called many things: terrible, magnificent, divine, but never once had anyone called her beautiful while smiling at her like she was just a woman. The guards moved forward, weapons raised. Commander Drin, her personal protector, shouted orders. Mingi stepped in front of Taiho, speaking rapidly in the Kelvani tongue about diplomatic immunity. But Velith raised one hand, and everyone stopped. She stared at Taiho for a long moment. He did not look away. He did not stop smiling. And slowly something changed in her ancient eyes. The ice cracked, just a little, just enough to let through something that might have been curiosity. "Interesting," she whispered, so quietly that only Taiho could hear. Then she turned and walked away. Leaving the entire hall in shocked silence, Taiho finally let out the breath he had been holding. His heart was racing. His hands were shaking. But he was alive. Minji grabbed him and pulled him close. "Are you insane?" she hissed. "Do you have any idea what you just did?" Taiho watched the princess disappear through the far door. Just before she vanished, she turned her head and looked back at him one last time. "Yes," he said softly. "I think I do." He had looked into the eyes of a goddess and seen a lonely woman. He had spoken to a legend and found a person. And somehow, against all logic and reason, he had survived. But this was only the beginning. Taiho could feel it in his bones. Whatever had just happened between them was not over. The galaxy would never be the same. The holding quarters were comfortable, but felt like a prison. Taiho sat on a bed made of some soft alien material and stared at the ceiling. Outside the window, the twin moons of Ashara Prime rose into the night. The sky. 3 hours had passed since the incident in the Great Hall. 3 hours of waiting. 3 hours of wondering if tomorrow would bring death or war. The door opened, and Minji walked in. Her face was pale and tired. She had been meeting with Kelvani officials, trying to repair the damage. "Well?" Taiho asked. Minji sat down heavily in a chair. "You should be dead right now. Do you know that? Commander Drin wanted to execute you in the hall. 3 council members demanded your head as a gift to the princess. 2 of them wanted to destroy our entire ship. But they didn't. No, they didn't." Minji rubbed her eyes. "The princess stopped them. She told them to leave you alone. Nobody knows why." Taiho thought about those winter storm eyes. He thought about the crack in the ice. Maybe she was curious. Curious? Minji laughed bitterly. "She's not a child finding a new toy. Taiho, she's a 300-year-old warrior who has destroyed entire civilizations. The last person who looked at her directly was burned alive in front of his whole species as a warning. I'm not burned. Not yet." Minji leaned forward. "What were you thinking? We went over the protocols 100 times. Keep your head down. Don't make eye contact. It was simple." Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "I couldn't look away." "What?" "When she walked in, everyone bowed. Everyone. Species that have traveled. The stars for 1,000,000 years, warriors, kings, they all looked down like they were nothing. And I thought, is that what we want? Is that the future humans are working toward? To bow and scrape and never look anyone in the eye?" Mingi stared at him. This isn't about human pride. This is about survival, no, Taiho said firmly. This is exactly about human pride. Not arrogance, pride. The kind that says every person has worth. The kind that says we don't kneel to anyone, not because we think we're better, but because we know we're equal. Minji opened her mouth to argue, but the door opened again. Captain Park Sunwoo entered. He was an older man with gray hair and a face like carved stone. He had commanded ships through battles that should have killed him. Nothing surprised him anymore, until today. The Emperor has summoned, Taiho Sunhua said. Minji jumped to her feet. What? Why? We haven't finished negotiations. Not for negotiations. A private audience. Just Taiho. The throne room was different at night. Empty and dark, lit only by floating lights that drifted through the air like ghosts. The throne of black crystal gleamed under the pale glow. Emperor Morith sat upon it, watching Taiho approach. Without the golden mask, his face was visible. He was old, impossibly old. With skin like cracked stone and eyes that held the weight of ages, Taiho walked forward and stopped at a respectful distance. He did not bow, but he nodded his head in greeting. A middle ground between submission and defiance. The Emperor studied him for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was like wind moving through ancient trees. You are brave, human. Or perhaps foolish? In my long life, I have seen many who could not tell the difference. Maybe there is no difference, Taiho replied. Maybe they're the same thing, seen from different angles. The Emperor's thin lips curved slightly. It might have been a smile. My daughter has not stopped speaking of you. Do you know how unusual that is? She does not speak of anything. She commands. She judges. She destroys. But she does not speak. I'm honored. You should be frightened. The Emperor leaned forward. Do you know why the Kelvani demand submission? Why we require all beings to lower their eyes before royalty? To show respect? No. To remind them of their place. The Emperor's eyes glowed faintly in the darkness. For 10,000 years, this empire has held because every species knows exactly where they stand. At the bottom, looking up. The moment they forget that, the moment they think themselves equal, chaos follows. War follows. Death follows. Taiho considered this. On Earth, we have a different philosophy. Tell me. We believe that fear creates obedience, but respect creates loyalty. People who bow because they're afraid will rise the moment they see weakness. People who stand as equals will fight beside you until the end. The Emperor was silent for a long time. The floating lights drifted past like silent witnesses. Interesting, he said finally. The same word his daughter had used. You have given me something to consider, human. In return, I will give you an opportunity. An opportunity? My daughter is troubled. She has been for many years, though she would never admit it. She is surrounded by fear and submission, and it has made her cold. Perhaps even lonely. The word seemed strange coming from his ancient lips. You looked at her and saw something no one else has seen. I want to know what. What are you asking? The Emperor smiled, and this time it reached his eyes. It was not a kind smile. It was the smile of someone playing a very long game. You will serve as Velith's personal human liaison for 1 lunar cycle. 30 days by your counting. You will be her shadow, her companion, her window into humanity. If you survive her temper and the court's hatred, I will grant your species trade terms beyond anything you could have hoped for. And if I don't survive, then the Dominion will know that humans are as fragile as they appear, and our relationship will proceed accordingly. Taiho thought about Minji and Captain Sunwoo. He thought about Earth and all the humans waiting for good news. He thought about Princess Velith and her lonely eyes. I accept, he said. The Emperor nodded slowly. You truly cannot tell the difference between bravery and foolishness, can you? No, Taiho admitted, but I've found that the universe rewards those who try anyway. He walked out of the throne room with the weight of 2 worlds on his shoulders. Behind him, the Emperor sat alone in the darkness, thinking thoughts older than human civilization, and somewhere in the palace. Princess Velith stood by her window, watching the moon's rise. Thinking about a human who had smiled at her like she was just a woman, she touched the cold glass with her pale fingers. Her reflection stared back at her, cold and beautiful and alone. Interesting, she whispered to herself, for the first time in 100 years. She was looking forward to tomorrow. The first week was torture. Princess Velith tested Taiho in ways he had never imagined. She made him stand for 8 hours while she attended court meetings. She assigned him tasks meant to humiliate, like carrying her personal items in front of mocking nobles. She spoke to him only in commands, never in conversation. And through it all, Taiho smiled. He smiled when his legs burned from standing. He smiled when aliens laughed at him. He smiled when Velith dismissed him like a servant. At first, his smile made her angry. She pushed harder, trying to break him. She woke him in the middle of the night. She made him run alongside her vehicle through the city streets. She denied him food for a full day, but Taiho kept smiling. Not a fake smile, a real one. And slowly, something began to change. By the second week, Velith found herself looking at him differently. This human was strange. He did not bow, but he was not rude. He did not fear her, but he was not disrespectful. He treated her tests like challenges to overcome rather than punishments to endure. One morning, Velith woke to find a small cup waiting outside her door. Steam rose from it, carrying a strange but pleasant smell. "What is this?" she asked Taiho, who stood nearby. "Tea," he said. "From Earth. I asked Captain Sunwoo to bring some from our ship. On Earth, when you care about someone's well-being, you bring them tea." Velith stared at the cup. "You care about my well-being? Of course, I have done nothing but make your life difficult." Taiho shrugged. "You're testing me. I understand. But tests don't change how I treat people." Velith took the cup. She sniffed it carefully, then took a small sip. It was warm and slightly bitter, but there was something comforting about it. She had never tasted anything like it. "Acceptable," she said. Taiho smiled. "That's the nicest thing you've said to me." Something flickered in her eyes. It might have been amusement. She turned away before he could see it, but she finished the tea. The third week brought their first real conversation. Velith had taken Taiho to a garden on her estate, a place filled with plants that glowed in the darkness. She walked among them in silence, and Taiho followed. "Why do you keep smiling?" she asked suddenly. "Why shouldn't I?" "Because you have no power here. You are surrounded by beings who could kill you with a thought. Your life depends on my word. Most beings in your position would be terrified." Taiho thought about this. "Can I tell you a story?" Velith said nothing, which he took as permission. "When I was young, my country went through difficult times. My family had very little. Some days we didn't know if we would eat. I could have been angry. I could have been bitter. But my grandmother told me something I never forgot. What did she say? She said that the world will try to take everything from you. Your food, your home, your dignity. But there is one thing no one can take unless you let them. Your smile. Your choice to be kind. Your decision to see the good in the world even when the world gives you nothing but bad." Velith was quiet for a long moment. The glowing plants swayed gently around them. "I have lived for 300 years, she said softly. "I have commanded armies. I have watched stars die. I have been called goddess and monster and everything in between. But no one has ever spoken to me like you do. How do I speak to you? Like I am just a person." Taiho nodded. "Because you are. Under all the titles and the power and the history, you're a person. You get tired. You feel alone. You wonder if anyone really sees you." Velith's eyes widened. For a moment, the ice cracked completely, and Taiho saw the woman underneath. Not a princess. Not a commander. Just a woman who had been alone for far too long. "How do you know these things?" she whispered. "Because I see you," Taiho said simply. "I've been seeing you since that first day." Velith looked away, but not before Taiho saw something glistening in her winter storm eyes. They stood in the glowing garden. Two beings from different worlds, and for the first time, neither felt alone. The attack came on the 25th night, Taiho was walking through the estate when he heard the sound of breaking glass, then screaming, then silence. He ran toward Veleth's quarters, his heart pounding. The guards at her door were dead, their bodies still smoking from energy weapons. The door was open. Inside, Veleth faced 3 assassins. They wore black armor and masks, and they moved with deadly precision. She had killed one, but she was wounded. Silver blood ran down her arm. "Princess," Taiho shouted. The assassins turned. One of them laughed. "The human pet. Kill him first." Taiho grabbed a ceremonial blade from the wall. It was meant for decoration, not fighting, but it was sharp enough. The first assassin charged. Taiho ducked under the energy blade and drove his weapon into the attacker's side. The alien screamed and fell. The second assassin was faster. He struck Taiho across the chest, sending him crashing into the wall. Pain exploded through his body. He tasted blood, but Taiho got up. The assassin hesitated. Humans were supposed to be weak, fragile. This one should be dead. Taiho smiled through bloody teeth. "My grandmother also taught me something else." "What?" "Never stay down." He threw himself at the assassin. They crashed to the floor together, fighting for the weapon. Taiho felt his ribs crack. He felt his skin burn. But he kept fighting. Veleth finished the third assassin and turned to help. But Taiho had already driven his blade through the second attacker's throat. Then he collapsed. Veleth caught him before he hit the floor. His blood was everywhere, red and strange and warm. She had seen death countless times, but something about this human's blood made her feel sick in a way she didn't understand. "Why?" she demanded. "Why did you fight? You could have run. You owed me nothing." Taiho looked up at her with dimming eyes. "Because that's what humans do. We protect the people we care about." His eyes closed. Veleth held him tighter. "No," she whispered. No. When Commander Drin arrived with reinforcements, he found something impossible. Princess Veleth, the cold and terrible, the Ice Queen of the Dominion, was holding the unconscious human in her arms, screaming for medics. There were tears on her face. In 300 years, no one had ever seen her cry. The medical wing of the Imperial Palace was the most advanced in the galaxy. Doctors from 100 worlds worked there, armed with technology that could heal almost any wound. But they had never treated a human before. Taiho lay on a bed of light, floating between life and death. Machines hummed around him, trying to understand his strange body. The Kelvani doctors worked frantically, but nothing they did seemed to help. "His biology makes no sense," the head doctor said. "His body temperature is dangerously high. His heart beats too fast. His blood carries some kind of iron compound that we've never seen. By all our standards, he should already be dead." But Taiho was not dead. His heart kept beating, fast and stubborn. His lungs kept breathing. His body fought against death with a fury that amazed the alien doctors. Princess Veleth stood by his bedside. She had not moved in 6 hours. Commander Drin had tried to convince her to rest, but she had refused with such cold anger that even he stepped back. "Why won't he wake?" she demanded. "You don't know, Princess. Human physiology is completely foreign to us. We're doing everything we can," but the door burst open. Ambassador Minji rushed in, followed by Captain Sunwoo. They carried cases of equipment.
"Move aside."
Minji commanded the doctors. "We'll take over from here." The Kelvani doctors looked offended. "You humans barely understand basic medicine. Your species was living in caves while we mapped the genome.
Oh.
And yet your advanced medicine is letting him die," Minji shot back. "Move now." Veleth raised her hand. "Let them work." The Kelvani doctors stepped back, watching with doubt in their eyes. Minji and Sunwoo opened their cases and began connecting human medical equipment to Taiho's body. "His vital signs are weak," Sunwoo said, "but stable." "He's fighting. Of course he's fighting," Minji muttered. "He's too stubborn to die." They worked for hours. Mingi injected medicines that the Kelvani had never seen. Sunwoo monitored readings on devices that looked primitive compared to Kelvani technology. But slowly, impossibly, Taiho's condition began to improve. The Kelvani doctors watched in amazement. Human medicine was crude, basic, almost barbaric. But it worked. The human body, despite being weak and fragile by galactic standards, had a strength they had never understood. It refused to give up. How is this possible? The head doctor asked. His injuries should have killed any species in the galaxy. Minji didn't look up from her work. Humans are different. We evolved on a death world. Our planet tried to kill us every day for millions of years. Predators, diseases, natural disasters. We survived not because we were strong, but because we never stopped fighting. Your bodies are weak. Our bodies are resilient. There's a difference. Minji finally looked at the doctor. Kelvani heal faster and better. But when healing fails, you die. Humans heal slower and worse. But when healing fails, we keep going anyway. We run on broken legs. We fight with bleeding wounds. We survive things that should kill us through sheer stubbornness. Velith listened to every word. She looked at Taiho's face, peaceful in unconsciousness, and remembered his smile. Even when she had made his life miserable, he had smiled. Even when assassins had attacked, he had smiled through bloody teeth. Never stay down. He had said she finally understood. On the third day, Taiho opened his eyes. The first thing he saw was Velith's face, hovering above him. Her silver hair fell around her like a curtain, and her winter storm eyes were red from lack of sleep. You're still here, he said. His voice was weak, but he managed a small smile. You almost died, Velith said. Her voice shook slightly. I watched your heart stop twice. The doctor said you would never wake. Then why are you surprised? I told you. Humans protect the people they care about. Velith's composure cracked. Why? Why would you do this for me? I'm not worth dying for. I've done terrible things. I've destroyed worlds. I've killed millions. I'm a monster. Taiho reached up slowly and touched her face. His hand was weak, but the gesture was gentle. You're not a monster, he said. You're a person who was never given a choice. Born into power, raised to be cold. Surrounded by fear your whole life, the things you did, they were expected of you, demanded of you. But that's not who you are. Not really. How do you know who I really am? Because I've seen you cry? Monsters don't cry. Velith's eyes filled with tears again. She took his hand and held it against her face. I don't understand you, she whispered. I don't understand any of this. I've lived for centuries, and I thought I knew everything about the universe. But humans. You make no sense. Taiho smiled weakly. That's our specialty. The Emperor convened the High Council 5 days later. The assassination attempt had been traced to a faction of nobles who opposed human integration into the Dominion. Their plan had been simple. Kill Princess Velith, blame the humans, and start a war that would destroy humanity before it could grow strong. But a human had saved her instead. The council chamber was filled with representatives from across the Dominion. They had come expecting to discuss punishment for the human delegation. Instead, they found themselves facing a changed emperor. I have ruled this empire for 2,000 years, Emperor Morith said. His ancient voice filled the chamber. I have seen species rise and fall. I have watched empires burn. I thought I understood the nature of power and survival. He paused, looking at something only he could see. I was wrong. Whispers rippled through the chamber. The humans are young, weak. Their technology is primitive. Their bodies are fragile. By every measure we use, they should be nothing but insects beneath our feet. The Emperor's eyes found Taiho, who stood supported by Mingi. But this human faced death to protect my daughter. He had no weapons. No power, no advantage. He fought anyway because he cared about her. The whispers grew louder. When is the last time any of you did something like that? When is the last time any of us risked everything not for power or profit, but simply because we cared? The Emperor shook his head slowly. We have built an empire on fear, and fear has made us powerful. But it has also made us cold. It has made us forget what it means to truly live. He stood from his throne. The humans will not be punished. The traitors who attempted to kill my daughter will face justice. And from this day forward, humanity will be recognized not as insects, but as a species worthy of respect. The council erupted in shock and argument, but Taiho wasn't listening. He was looking at Velith, who stood across the chamber, watching him with eyes that held something new, hope for the first time in centuries. The Ice Queen of the Kelvani Dominion felt warm. The negotiations ended on a day of celebration. 30 days had passed since Taiho first looked into the eyes of a princess and changed everything. Now, the Kelvani Dominion and humanity stood together as allies. The terms were more generous than anyone had expected. Trade rights that would transform human industry. Technology sharing that would advance Earth by centuries. Military protection that would keep humanity safe while it grew. And most importantly, a formal alliance between equals, not insects, not children. Equals. Ambassador Minji could barely believe what she had achieved. She stood in the grand hall, surrounded by alien dignitaries, holding a signed treaty that would reshape human history. "We did it," she said to Captain Sunwoo. "We actually did it." Sunwoo nodded, but his eyes found Taiho across the room. "We didn't do anything." "He did." Taiho stood near a window, looking out at the alien city one last time. Tomorrow, the human delegation would return to Earth. Their mission was complete. Their work was done, so why did he feel so empty? "You're leaving," Taiho turned. Velith stood behind him, dressed not in armor, but in a flowing gown of silver and white. She looked younger somehow, softer. The ice in her eyes had melted into something warmer. "The mission is over," Taiho said. "Humanity has its alliance. There's no reason for me to stay? Is that what you believe?" Taiho was quiet for a moment. "What I believe doesn't matter. You're a princess. I'm just a diplomat. We come from different worlds, different species. There's no future for whatever this is." Velith stepped closer. "For 300 years, people have told me what my future must be. I must rule. I must command. I must be cold and terrible so that the empire survives. I accepted this because I thought I had no choice. And now I've met someone who taught me that we always have a choice." She took his hand in hers. Her skin was cool, but her grip was firm. "You looked at me when everyone else looked away. You smiled at me when everyone else cowered. You nearly died to protect me when everyone else would have run. I did what any human would do." Velith shook her head. "You did what you would do. Because you are Kang Taiho. Because you believe that every being has worth. Because you see people, not titles. I have met millions of beings in my long life, and none of them were like you." Taiho felt his heart beating faster. "What are you saying?" Velith smiled. It was small and uncertain, like a flower blooming in winter. "I'm saying that you changed me. I was frozen before you came, dead inside, going through the motions of existence without really living. You woke me up. You made me feel things I had forgotten I could feel." "Lith, tell me to stay," she said. "Tell me you don't feel anything and I'll let you go. I'll go back to being cold and distant and alone. But if you feel what I feel, then say something. Fight for this, like you fight for everything else." Taiho looked into her eyes. "Winter storms, yes, but also warmth now. Also something that might be love." He had always been taught that some barriers could not be crossed. Species, culture, history. These were walls that separated people forever, but Taiho had never been good at accepting walls. "I can't ask you to give up everything for me," he said. "Your position, your people, your home. You're not asking. I'm choosing." Velith squeezed his hand. "On Earth, you said people bring tea to those they care about. What do they do for those they love?" Taiho smiled. That warm, genuine smile that had started everything. "They build a life together. They stand beside each other through good times and bad. They face the universe as partners. Then let me be your partner. The next day, Emperor Morith made an announcement that shocked the galaxy. Princess Velith, third daughter of the throne, would travel to Earth as the first Kelvani ambassador to humanity. It was an honor no other species had ever received. The real reason was simpler. A princess had fallen in love with a human who saw her as a person. And for the first time in her immortal life, she was choosing her own path. The human ship prepared to depart. Mingy stood at the boarding ramp, still trying to process what had happened. "You're really doing this?" she asked Velith. "I am." "You're giving up everything." "The throne. The power. Your whole world." Velith looked at Taiho, who was saying goodbye to Commander Drin nearby. "I'm not giving up anything. I'm gaining everything." Drin clasped Taiho's arm in the Kelvani way. "Take care of her, human. She is more precious than you know." "I know exactly how precious she is," Taiho replied. "I'll protect her with my life." "You already did." Drin's stern face softened slightly. "Perhaps humans are not as weak as we thought. We never were. You just weren't looking." The ship lifted off from Ashara Prime as the twin suns rose. Taiho and Velith stood at the observation deck, watching the alien world shrink below them. Soon they would jump to hyperspace. Soon they would be among the stars. "Are you afraid?" Taiho asked. "Yes," Velith admitted. "Your world is strange to me. Your people might not accept me. I might fail. You won't fail, and you won't be alone." Taiho took her hand. "That's the thing about humans. We stick together. And now, you're one of us." Velith looked at him with wonder. "You would accept me? After everything my people have done? After everything I have done? The past doesn't define you. The future does. And your future is with us now." The ship jumped to hyperspace. Stars stretched into lines of light, and then they were moving faster than light itself. Crossing the distance between worlds and moments, Velith had lived for 300 years. She had seen wonders that most beings could not imagine. But nothing had ever felt as wonderful as standing here, holding hands with a human who had looked at her and seen not a goddess or a monster, but a woman worth loving. "Hey-ho," she said softly. "Yes. Thank you for looking at me, for smiling, for being stubborn enough to see past the ice." Taiho turned to face her. In the glow of hyperspace, her silver hair shimmered like starlight. Her winter storm eyes were warm and full of love. "You dare gaze at me?" she whispered, echoing her first words to him. Taiho smiled. That same smile from 30 days ago. That same smile that had changed to worlds. "Only because you're beautiful," he said. And then among the stars, a human and a princess kissed. It was a kiss that sealed not just their love, but the future of two species. A future built not on fear and submission, but on respect and understanding, and the simple truth that every being, no matter how powerful or how weak, deserves to be seen. Behind them, the galaxy stretched endlessly. Billions of stars, countless worlds, infinite possibilities. And somewhere in all that vastness, two hearts beat as one. The Ice Queen had found her warmth. The stubborn human had found his home. And the universe, against all odds, had become a little bit brighter. This was what humanity brought to the stars. Not weapons. Not technology. Not power. Just love. Just hope. Just the simple courage to look at someone and see who they really are. And that, in the end, was more powerful than any empire.